there are a lot of complaints about the state of the video game industry at the moment. There's a litany of mediocre live service titles that are published, then die out after just a few months or years, and many players don't feel as if they're being taken seriously. The desire to return to form, to have high quality games with the player in mind, has been a growing sentiment for years now, and I truly believe that it's with games like South of Midnight that we'll get closer to that dream. It's an adventure with a beautifully crafted world oozing with style and personality. Although it falters with its writing and story in certain places, it's a brilliant reminder of how it used to feel to play video games, and hopefully it's a sign of better things to come for the industry. This review will only contain very minor spoilers, but if you'd rather go in completely blind, the game takes around 8 to 10 hours to complete, so honestly it wouldn't take too long to get through all of it. So go play the game first, and then come back and watch this. The story follows Hazel Flood as she tries to find her mom after a huge hurricane hits Louisiana. During her journey, she uncovers a secret magical world that exists within the fabric of our own, and she needs to explore this world in order to get her mother back. The story overall is very well told, and with each chapter the player gains a greater understanding of the Grand Tapestry and Hazel's significant role within it. The focus on trauma and the past is really interesting, and I like the idea of weavers being these saviors/therapists for a lot of people. Although themes involving trauma are prevalent within the Southern Gothic genre, I really appreciate how it's subverted here by being about healing the wounds from the past instead of focusing on revenge for previous transgressions, like in other works within the Southern Gothic, such as Outer Dark by Cormac McCarthy. These traumatic events affect the entirety of the Grand Tapestry, the magical world that exists within and flows around the real one. And weavers are the ones to heal both the wounds of those involved and the structural integrity of this magical world, with objects like glass bottles which, instead of bottling up emotions, act as a pain collector to shed light on the past, and stigma which needs to be broken to stave away the corruption within the Grand Tapestry. There are a lot of nods and references to terms commonly used when talking about mental health. It's a really cool modernization of Southern Gothic tropes. The only real problems I have with the story are the very beginning and the very end. To start at the start, the opening hour of the game is just kind of strange and goes at 1,000,000 miles an hour. We go from Hazel's place to meeting Beau and Mrs. Pearl, and then her mum is swept away in the flood, haha. She goes to her grandmother's mansion looking for answers, spends a massive 5 minutes there before then moving on. In terms of the narrative, all of this makes sense. It's just paced far too quickly, and therefore it's difficult to really get anchored into the story and the characters. A good story requires good foundations, and the foundations here are a bit wobbly. I think more time should have been spent in more places so that we get to know the real, normal world of Prospero better, as well as understanding the characters better as well. Despite that, the story definitely picks up in quality after the first few chapters, as the pacing issues dissolve fairly quickly. As for the ending, this is less about pacing and more about storytelling. Now, I won't be spoiling this at all, of course, but just know that certain decisions are made at the very end that are surprisingly controversial. I definitely didn't see it coming, and I don't mean that in a good way. If I ever do a spoiler discussion on the game, the ending will be a huge part of it. I get what they were going for, but I'm not sure if it was exactly the right choice. Both the real world and that of the Grand Tapestry are beautifully designed, and I'm a big fan of mixing a fantastical folktale kind of world with the real one. It reminds me of 100 Years of Solitude. I haven't finished the book, but I got maybe halfway through, but it's very similar in style. Merged with the storybook art style, the environments are just incredible, and the destruction caused by the hurricane mixed with the strands flowing everywhere really gives the sense that these two worlds are flowing together, that being the physical world and the Grand Tapestry. This is also helped by the number of animals that are scurrying around all of these environments. It makes it feel so alive and underlines that folktale aesthetic. This is also helped by the cow on the roof, hello Mr. Cow, and one of my favourite characters in the game, Tortoise. I love the two-toed Tom area, it's amazing. All of these buildings and statues being stuck at awkward angles in this barren wasteland just has an incredible aesthetic. It's like Fallout in a way, and it reminds me of the Electric State 2, but not that one. The final area though is my favourite by far, being this kind of twisted New Orleans being torn out of reality. It's incredibly well designed, much like the rest of the game, and honestly I kind of wish that it was a little bit more open world, but let's be honest, I'm just nitpicking at this point. The small moments of exploration are really cool. where you can find floof, that's the game's word, not mine, to upgrade your abilities, but you also find notes that expand your understanding of certain characters or locations. This is one of the rare times where I really liked exploring and finding little hidden secrets here and there, especially with the help of this little guy. I would even use the guiding strand during levels just so that I could avoid it and explore. This kind of worked against me during certain sections though, because if you need to unlock memories in a specific order and go off the beaten path, I think this can lead to experiencing memories out of order, like I did when at Bunny's cottage. The lore section of the menu is a much appreciated element of the game, as sometimes I have to get caught back up on what something is and what it does, so it's very useful. The art style is the biggest selling point of the game by far. It's very unique in its presentation, and if anything, I think you should really experience this game for the art style alone. The writing overall is pretty great, as it's able to include a number of fairly compelling characters and connect them through the themes of pain, regret, and guilt. I like how the characters whose trauma we focus on are genuinely flawed people. They are survivors of some truly horrific experiences, but they themselves have hurt others and have done some pretty messed up stuff too. On a lighter note though, Crouton is definitely my favorite new addition. He's adorable, and I love all of the little sounds that he makes, especially the no 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 when you reclaim him. Also, a pretty OP ability to use in combat too, which we'll get to in just a second. Hazel, however, is a bit of a hit or miss character for me. Sometimes I really connect with her, but other times her motivations and reactions to things don't make much sense to me. The fact that she speaks to Catfish in a similar way to how she speaks to her own mother just doesn't add up. Wouldn't you be freaking out about all of this? What's with these toned down reactions to a massive talking catfish? There are moments where I really like her energy and sense of humor, but more often than not, I don't really know who she is outside of main character that wants to save their mother. Also, and this is much more of a nitpick than anything else, but certain characters are introduced that don't really add that much to the narrative outside of 2 or 3 scenes. I'm sure glad we were introduced to Bo though. What an interesting and deep character who will play a truly fundamental and intrinsic role in this narrative. The swearing sometimes feels a bit out of place here too, just because you have a really decent tone being set with this modern folktale type of storytelling, and then out of nowhere somebody just swears, usually Hazel, and it doesn't really match the tone of the rest of the game. Hazel does get new drip though, which looks sick and kind of reminds me of Caitlyn from Arcane, but her final fit in the game looks the best for sure. So honestly, it makes up for the really weird moments. But seriously though, I think the dialogue is well written and I like the way the story is told. There were just certain decisions that were made that I don't think fit the tone of the game. The movement and the combat are simple and very satisfying. You get a few new movement abilities throughout the game, but honestly, even from the beginning, it's pretty smooth. The platforming sections of each chapter are fairly well designed, and I like the idea of tapping into the elements of the Grand Tapestry to glide and float around the world. You're encouraged to explore and to do a little puzzle platforming to get to the floof and to find a note scattered around each level. The combat is also pretty fun. You have a combo you can perform with the 2 weapons you get at the beginning, but you also have these special abilities that you can use too, which are crucial in defeating certain enemies effectively. Combined with your satisfying movement abilities, you're able to bob and weave and combine moves together to take out groups of enemies swiftly and stylishly. The main issue is the difficulty. I started at medium, went up to advanced, and there were certain fights where I wasn't taking damage at all, so I changed to custom, and that's where I was able to find the difficulty that suited me the best. But still, it's kind of crazy that I had to switch to custom for it to even pose a challenge. And I'm not saying I'm God's gift to combat either. In fact, I was playing quite normally on advanced without even really engaging with the special moves, and I was still finding it too easy. I do appreciate though that the game allows the player to really craft their own combat experience with the custom setting, because if I was stuck purely with advanced for the whole game, the combat would have been the most boring part for sure. The upgrade system is genuinely very useful too. Some of the skills at the beginning were not that powerful at all, but with certain upgrades they can definitely get you out of a jam when you're waiting for the cooldown on your abilities to end. I wasn't even able to get all of the upgrades, but even still I was an absolute powerhouse during the final combat sections, and admittedly it did start to feel a little bit easy by the end because of how OP I was. But honestly, by that point, I was more focused on the story than anything else. The enemies in each area pose a pretty dangerous threat, and I like how they have synergistic abilities to make it even harder for you to get a single hit in. It forces you to use your movement abilities to maneuver around to better positions, and really think about each attack instead of just button mashing. I find the combat very satisfying, and the abilities feel very useful. The respawn animation is also really cool. Very nice. The sound effects are incredible in this game. They add so much texture and life to the world. When you double jump, there's a little singing voice that accompanies the second jump. And when you glide, more voices emerge. So when you combine moves, it's almost as if you're creating your own music with the movement. The use of actual songs during gameplay is really well done. And it's such a fundamental aspect of the folktale-esque storytelling. It reminds me a lot of Over the Garden Wall. I also like that the music is treated diegetically in a similar way to the sound effects when Hazel is jumping or floating. It's like Hazel's story is being performed as she's experiencing it. Each character has their own kind of theme song, which is sung throughout the section. And even during the boss fight with Laurent, he sings part of his song as he fights you, which I think is amazing. It's like there's no separation between fantasy and reality. Everything is merging into one. If it hasn't been made clear already, I really like this game. From the animation to the world design to the combat, there's so much to love here. You can tell through all of the tiny details that the devs put their all into this one, and playing this game brought with it a feeling that I rarely feel nowadays. It's like modernized nostalgia. The graphics and sound design are incredible, but the style and the combat bring me back to 2000s action games that I grew up playing. At the end of the game, I realized just how often I play games and feel nothing, so it's kind of reinvigorated my passion for video games, and my hope is that this is the catalyst for better things to come. Whether or not that actually will happen is doubtful, but I'm still holding out hope. There may be issues in the writing and pacing, with a bizarre ending, but the pros far outweigh the cons, resulting in an enjoyable 10-hour experience that I won't be forgetting anytime soon.